Hi everyone, how are you doing today? I hope you're having a good one. We're going to change gears a little bit here. We're still going to talk about Aptera, but this time we're going to get Steve Fambro thoughts on the Chinese auto takeover. And so let's talk about that. Welcome back to my channel, everyone. It's good to have you here. Yeah, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different today. Thank you for joining Free Power. We're going to talk about how Steve Fambro feels about the Chinese taking over the auto industry around the world. And of course, this is just part one. So let's go ahead and get into this. This was actually done on Mind Blowers podcast. I got the link down below. So if you want to link into it, you got the link to go to that. All right. So let's hear what Steve's got to say about that.
They don't realize they are in an absolute economic war with China because that's what China is thinking. We want to take all of your market share. We want to produce every vehicle.
In this fascinating episode of Mind Blowers, Aptera SEO Steve Fambro warned the US and the European car industry about a potential Chinese dominance if we don't change and adapt. Follow this interesting conversation between Steve and Daniel Kafer, who is a futurist, author, and former Facebook executive.
So, what if we look at the landscape of car production? So, obviously, we hear a lot about Chinese cars at the moment, and mostly we see examples, or I see examples at least on social media, and they look quite interesting, but we don't really see them that much on the roads here in Europe. And I guess you're not seeing them too much on the roads in the US. So, how do you envision? Let's again use California as an example. Um, how do you envision the car park, the mix in terms of where the cars are coming from? Like, will they be coming from the US, from Europe, from Japan, or from China in the future?
This is a very emotional and sensitive subject with a lot of people, and so I have an American perspective, which is different, than the rest of the world, different from yours. But I was recently at an event in Detroit, and I was shocked the irony and also the cognitive dissonance that automotive executives of American, the big three, if you will, it's just their opinion of China. Um, well, maybe we can find ways to partner on this and that, and how do we, work with and grow with China, this or that. They don't realize they are in an absolute economic war with China because that's what China is thinking. We want to take all of your market share. We want to produce every vehicle. And you don't have to speculate about it. You can look at, let's say, the American furniture industry. There's a book written about it called Factory Man. And it's about the loss of the American furniture industry, not a company, but the industry to China. And how that happened and why it happened and how the Chinese government works in ways that we would not allow or we would think are unfair from a market perspective. But we don't have visibility into their system. They're not using gap accounting. We have no idea the kind of levers that they're pulling to give themselves an advantage. But in the end, when a factory job is lost, there's tens of other jobs that go with it. And that's what we're seeing here in the United States. Everyone can't have a college degree and write code. People need to make things. And when you make things, there's an ecosystem of jobs around you that are created by doing that, which are very helpful. They lift people up out of poverty, they give them good incomes. And so I think the Western countries who have standards on labor, on human rights, on all kinds of things, have to stand firm and say, if we're going to trade, the trade has to be fair. How can I bring in a $10,000 car that's going to put my car maker out of business? And it's a very slippery slope because then you could create a domestic industry that has no competition and then squeezes a customer, which often happens. So I think it's going to be a difficult road to navigate. But I I also think it's a lesson in silly, childlike way of looking at the world. The Airbus, Boeing, every American car company set up research and design centers in China. They put factories there, and they said, "Oh, we'll train the Chinese to just make our parts for us and send us parts, and that'll be it." They're very smart people. They have ambition. What did they think was going to happen? And so they created this monster essentially, but now we have to compete against it, or create, whether it's a combination of tariffs or whatever, to make sure that we're all playing on the same level playing ground. So I would say Chinese car companies, unchecked, could easily be the end of Western car companies, and it's an incredibly real threat, and they have their head in the sand about it.
I feel Steve Fambro is totally right. I believe that what the Chinese are doing is they want to make everything if possible. But right now we see them making all the cheapest cars that they can to splurge out into the world with. And they're basically going to push every other automaker out of business. And when you have a good quality car and its price is really low, that's exactly what's going to happen. But here's the kicker. Once they do that, once there's no other company to compete with the Chinese auto company, then they created a monopoly. After that, they can charge you on whatever price they want to for the vehicle, because there'll be no other competition, no other automaker that can compete with them, or especially on pricing. So I think Steve Fambro is right. We started with the furniture company. There's hardly any American furniture companies in the world. And if you think about it, a lot of things are being made in China. We don't know what they're doing behind the walls of China. The rates are really probably low if they're not doing slave labor. And who can compete with that? You can't compete with somebody that's doing free labor, especially when the United States have all these unions that are going on to make sure that their people are being well paid. But anyway, how do you feel about that? What do you think? I think China is basically going to take over, and they are going to run, everything that's being made. So I think, like Steve Fambro said, that American auto companies, they need to get their head out of the sand, as well as the government. They need to get involved with their own companies and help their startups do better. But anyway, once again, how do you feel about what Steve said? Yeah, just give me your thoughts on it. And anyway, right now we're just gonna end it right here. Thank you very much, my patrons. You guys are awesome. Thank you for continuing to help me. And if you're new here, hit the like, ring the bell, subscribe. But we'll catch you in the next video. All right. Bye-bye.